The year is 2025. A new chapter in North American relations is about to unfold, one that few could have predicted just a year earlier. North America is on edge. In living rooms and boardrooms from Toronto to Texas, people anxiously watch the news, uncertain about what tomorrow will bring. Former President Donald Trump, back in the Oval Office after a tumultuous 4 years, has unleashed a torrent of tariffs on Canada, sending shockwaves across the border and leaving many bewildered. The sudden escalation has disrupted trade, halted shipments and thrown long-standing partnerships into chaos. His reasons? A potent cocktail of national security concerns, laced with accusations of unchecked fentanyl trafficking and illegal border crossings. Trump's administration claims these threats have reached a breaking point, demanding immediate action. Trump, known for his fiery rhetoric and unpredictable policy shifts, claimed that Canada had become a backdoor for fentanyl flooding into the United States, fueling the opioid crisis. He argued that drastic measures were necessary to protect American families and communities from the devastating impact of opioids. He also decried what he perceived as lax border security, allowing illegal immigrants to slip through the cracks. The administration pointed to gaps in enforcement and surveillance, insisting that Canada's approach was putting American security at risk. The Canadian government, caught off guard by the sudden onslaught, vehemently denied these allegations. Officials scrambled to reassure both their citizens and international partners that Canada remained a reliable ally and neighbor. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, already facing dwindling popularity at home, found himself in the unenviable position of defending his country against accusations he deemed baseless and inflammatory. As protests erupted and political tensions soared, the world watched to see how Canada would respond to this unprecedented challenge. The heart of Trump's argument lay in the deadly opioid epidemic ravaging America. For years, communities across the country have been devastated by the surge in opioid-related deaths, with families torn apart and entire neighborhoods struggling to cope with the fallout. The crisis has touched every corner of the nation, from small rural towns to major metropolitan areas, leaving no demographic untouched. Fentanyl, a synthetic opioid many times more potent than heroin, had become a scourge, leaving a trail of devastation across the United States. Its potency means that even a tiny amount can be lethal, and its presence has overwhelmed first responders and healthcare systems. The drug's rapid spread has fueled a public health emergency, with overdose deaths reaching record highs year after year. Trump pointed the finger squarely at Canada, claiming it was a conduit for fentanyl smuggled from China. He argued that lax border controls and insufficient cooperation from Canadian authorities were allowing dangerous drugs to flow into the United States, exacerbating the crisis. However, a closer examination of the facts painted a different picture. Journalists and analysts began to scrutinize the data, looking beyond political rhetoric to uncover the real sources of the fentanyl flooding American streets. Data from the United States Customs and Border Protection and the Drug Enforcement Administration contradicted Trump's assertions. These agencies, tasked with monitoring and intercepting illegal drugs, provided detailed reports on the origins and trafficking routes of fentanyl entering the country. The vast majority of fentanyl seized entering the United States originated from Mexico and direct shipments from China, not through the Canadian border. Smugglers often use complex networks and hidden compartments to move the drug across the southern border or ship it directly from overseas. Moreover, a 2024 threat assessment by the United States government itself had concluded that while Canada was a transit country for fentanyl, it was not a major source of illicit fentanyl entering the United States. The report emphasized that the primary threats came from other regions. Even the Royal Canadian Mounted Police stated there was limited evidence of Canadian-produced fentanyl posing a significant threat to the United States. In fact, Canadian authorities have worked closely with their American counterparts to combat cross-border drug trafficking, highlighting the importance of international cooperation in addressing the opioid crisis. Trump's tariffs, far from being a mere negotiating tactic, sent immediate tremors through the intertwined economies of Canada and the United States. The announcement was met with shock and confusion, as businesses and communities on both sides of the border scrambled to understand the new reality. For decades, the US-Canada border had symbolized not just friendship, but a seamless partnership built on trust and mutual benefit. The once seamless flow of goods and people across the world's longest undefended border ground to a halt. Suddenly, what had been routine daily crossings for work, shopping, or family visits became fraught with delays and uncertainty. One of the hardest hit sectors was tourism. Border towns that once thrived on a steady stream of Canadian visitors found themselves eerily quiet, their main streets and attractions deserted. Canadians, once frequent visitors to United States destinations, cancelled trips en masse. Families postponed vacations, business travelers stayed home, and the ripple effects were felt in every corner of the travel industry. Cities like Nashville, where Canadians accounted for nearly half of all international tourists, felt the pinch acutely. Hotels, restaurants, and entertainment venues saw revenues plummet almost overnight. The United States travel industry braced for losses exceeding $2 billion as advanced bookings from major Canadian cities plummeted. Travel agencies and tour operators faced layoffs and closures with little hope for a quick recovery, but the pain extended far beyond tourism. Manufacturing plants and warehouses near the border slowed production or shut down entirely, unable to get the parts and materials they needed. Businesses on both sides of the border, reliant on integrated supply chains and cross-border trade, found themselves entangled in a web of red tape and escalating costs. Shipments that once took hours now took days, if they moved at all. The tariffs threatened to unravel decades of economic integration, leaving businesses large and small grappling with uncertainty and disruption. The future of cross-border cooperation, once taken for granted, was suddenly in question. The political fallout from Trump's tariff salvo was swift and dramatic. In Canada, the issue ignited a firestorm of debate, dividing public opinion and upending the political landscape. While some Canadians urged a measured response, others demanded a more confrontational approach. Trump's actions, seen by many as bullying and disrespectful, fueled a surge of Canadian nationalism. The Liberal Party, already struggling under Trudeau's leadership, faced mounting pressure to stand up to the United States. Trudeau's attempts to appease Trump while defending Canadian interests were met with increasing criticism. As the situation deteriorated, Trudeau's popularity, already on shaky ground, plummeted. Facing a potential electoral rout, he made the difficult decision to step down as Liberal leader. Mark Carney, the highly respected former governor of the Bank of England, emerged as a unifying figure and was elected the new leader of the Liberal Party and subsequently Prime Minister. As if navigating the treacherous terrain of Trump's tariffs wasn't enough, Canada found itself facing another geopolitical challenge: China. The Asian superpower, embroiled in its own escalating trade war with the United States, saw an opportunity to exploit the rift between Canada and its southern neighbor. China, with characteristic shrewdness, offered Canada a lifeline. It proposed dropping existing tariffs on Canadian goods and forging closer economic ties if Canada distanced itself from the United States and aligned its trade policies more closely with Beijing. The offer was tempting. Canada, facing economic uncertainty and feeling abandoned by its longtime ally, saw a potential escape route from the crossfire of the United States-China trade war. However, experts warned that aligning too closely with China carried its own set of risks. Trump's tariff offensive did not go unchallenged within the United States. 12 states, recognizing the economic damage inflicted by the tariffs, filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration. They argued that the tariffs, imposed under the guise of national security, were a thinly veiled attempt to circumvent Congress and violated the constitutional separation of powers. Adding to the legal pressure, a coalition of American businesses, heavily reliant on trade with Canada, also sought exemptions from the tariffs. They argued that the tariffs were causing irreparable harm to their businesses and jeopardizing American jobs. The legal battles really underscored the deep divisions within the United States regarding Trump's trade policies. Opponents argued that the tariffs were counterproductive, hurting American businesses and consumers, while undermining long-standing alliances. As the tariff war raged on, a new and unexpected player emerged on the scene: Elon Musk. The enigmatic CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, known for his bold pronouncements and unconventional approach, became an unlikely intermediary between the United States and Canada. Musk, who held dual Canadian-American citizenship, used his considerable influence and access to both governments to try and broker a resolution to the impasse. While details of his involvement remained shrouded in secrecy, sources suggested he was instrumental in facilitating back-channel communications between Washington and Ottawa. Whether Musk's efforts would bear fruit remained to be seen. However, his involvement injected a glimmer of hope into an otherwise bleak and uncertain situation. The tariff war, regardless of its eventual outcome, left an indelible mark on the relationship between Canada and the United States. The dispute eroded trust, stoked resentment, and exposed the fragility of the once unshakable bond between the two neighbors. For Canada, the tariff war was a wake-up call. It highlighted the country's economic vulnerability and its over-reliance on the American market. The experience forced Canada to confront difficult questions about its place in the world and its future relationship with its southern neighbor. The path forward was fraught with challenges. Repairing the damage and rebuilding trust would require time, effort, and a genuine commitment from both sides. The era of taking the United States-Canada relationship for granted was over. Trump's Tariff Tango left a bitter aftertaste, forcing both Canada and the United States to confront a new and unsettling reality. The days of seamless borders and unwavering friendship seemed like a distant memory. The relationship, once a model of cooperation and mutual respect, was now characterized by suspicion and uncertainty. The tariff war served as a stark reminder that even the strongest of alliances are not immune to the vagaries of domestic politics and the whims of unpredictable leaders. The road ahead for Canada and the United States was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the relationship would never be the same.